We are live.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the February 8th meeting of Council. We will start with a moment of reflection. Thank you. The Township of Oro-Medonte acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people, an ancestral territory of the Huron-Wendat. The Anishinaabe include the Odawa, the Ojibwe, and the Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. It continues today as the home for diverse Indigenous people, including the historic Métis community in Penetanguishene. The Anishinaabe people continue to have an enduring relationship with this land, specifically the Chippewas of Rama First Nation, the Chippewa Tri-Council, and the Williams Treaties First Nations. The Huron-Wendat Nation also continues to pay respect and protect their ancestral and heritage on this land. We honor the Indigenous history and the culture that have thrived for millennia in the territory and the treaties that bind us together as partners in spirit of shared, sustainable, and prosperous future. We all are treaty people. Our commitment begins with acknowledging the truth so that we can move forward together towards reconciliation. Madam Clerk, may we have a motion to adopt the agenda? And I understand there's an amendment to amend the wording for item 4C.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Moved by Lavoie, seconded by Young. Be it resolved that the agenda for the council meeting of Wednesday, February 8th, 2023 be received and adopted as amended to revise item 4C to read as follows. Robin Dunn, CAO, litigation affecting the municipality's solicitor-client privilege, legal update, cannabis, Zone 1 water, short-term rentals.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Madam Clerk, may we have a motion to go past 4 hours if necessary?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Lavoie. Be it resolved that Rule 14.19A, as per the Consolidated Procedural Bylaw number 2017-165, be suspended in order to allow the meeting to proceed past the 4-hour adjournment requirement if necessary.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Councillor Schell?
Yes, item 4C regarding short-term rentals.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do you need any more information than that?
If the councillor could advise for the reason for the pecuniary interest.
No.
If you could please advise the reason for your pecuniary interest.
Yes, 4C.
Not the item, but the reason for your pecuniary interest.
Oh, the reason?
Yes.
Oh, I own a bed and breakfast.
Okay, thank
Sorry.
you.
Thank you, Councillor Schell. No other disclosures, seeing none. We'll go into closed. May we have a motion, Madam Clerk, to go into closed session, please?
Moved by Bard, seconded by Clark. Be it resolved that we do now go into closed session at 3:04 p.m. to discuss litigation affecting the municipality's solicitor-client privilege, legal update, cannabis, Zone 1 water, short-term rentals. Litigation affecting the municipality 2012 SUB 03, part of Lot 24, Concession 8, OLT case number OLT 2020-004811, and Labor Relations Employee Negotiations Collective Agreement.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried? Okay, thank you very much. We'll be back, I'd say, by 5 o'clock at the latest, and we'll see you all in closed.
8 p.m. And report on closed session items C, D, and E.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And Madam Clerk, we'll come back and deal with the rest of item 4 later because we have a time constraint with the presentation of 8A. Mr. Mascaron is under a time constraint, so is he available? There he is. Good evening, Mr. Mascaron. You can go ahead at any time. I guess the only question I have is, would you want council, if they need clarity or anything, to do it all at the end of the presentation or during?
Mayor Greenlaw, probably at the end. I'll try to keep it brief. The actual presentation has a number of examples at the end, which we don't have to go through. And I've provided a copy to the clerk, and you can just look at them. So I won't address the examples of various restructurings, but I'll talk about it and hopefully leave you with a few minutes. I bought myself a little bit of time before I have to run off. So I've got an extra 10 minutes before I really need to run. So if it's all right with you, Mayor Greenlaw, members of council, I'll just share my screen and put the PowerPoint up.
Please, thank you.
Thank you. I'm hoping I'm sharing the right one. I don't think I am, though. Is it, do you have a full screen there of the municipal restructuring?
Not yet, John.
No? Okay.
Ms. Morrow says that she cannot hear anything, so if we can just ensure we have the mics working before we start.
Could you say something again, please, John?
Yes, can you hear me now? Am I audible?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, I can hear you now. Sorry, everybody.
Okay.
That was up, John.
Was it up?
Yes, it was
I'm
up,
just going to try. I'm going to try it one more time. Sorry. I think this should be the correct one.
Yes, we
Should be
have
the
it.
full screen. Okay, terrific. So, members of council, I'm here to give you just a brief overview of the municipal restructuring provisions that are contained in the Municipal Act. I did remember them. By the way, if you're looking for an expert on this area, you're probably not going to find too many experts because they were here 25 years ago when the Savings and Restructuring Act was put in place by the Conservative government back in 1996. I looked it up today, and what it said is the Savings and Restructuring Act, the purpose of the bill was to achieve fiscal savings and promote economic prosperity through public sector restructuring, streamlining, and efficiency, and to implement other aspects of the government's economic agenda. That was the original reason for the municipal restructuring provisions, which were contained in the early part of the Municipal Act, sections 25.1 and 25.2, which have been imported now into the new sections of the Municipal Act 2001. Here's the quick overview of what I'll be taking you through today. I'll talk to you specifically mostly about section 173, which is restructuring by a municipality and how that's done. There are also some other mechanisms for restructuring, and I will just briefly mention those. So this is the first part. Here's the second part. You'll see that items 13 through 18 are just examples, and I probably won't have an opportunity to go through that, but I'll try to walk you through some of the provisions dealing with municipal restructuring. So as I indicated, the focus of my presentation is really on municipal restructuring, which is encapsulated primarily through section 173 of the current Municipal Act. As you know, of course, outside of the Municipal Act itself, the province may pass legislation at any time to deal with all sorts of municipal restructuring, annexations, amalgamations, or boundary adjustments. And there's a couple of examples that I put at the bottom of the screen. Clearly, probably the biggest known, the well-known one is the City of Toronto megacity amalgamation back in 1996, 1997. And earlier, there was Ottawa-Carleton, which was amalgamated through the Regional Municipality of Ottawa-Carleton Act, Hamilton-Wentworth as well, the County of Simcoe, which you are a part of via the County of Simcoe Act back in 1993, which set up the county structure that you still have today. And you have the Barrie and Innisfil annexation, which was done by statute. I wanted to talk to you just about a little bit. Of course, as you know, and I've said this at your orientation, municipalities are pure creatures of provincial statute. And the case that really brought it home was the East York and Ontario Attorney General. This was the constitutional challenge by Metropolitan Toronto and the 6 constituent local municipalities that comprise Metropolitan Toronto against the Harris government's proposal to amalgamate the City of Toronto. As you know, it didn't follow through. The City of Toronto Act 1997 was held to be constitutionally valid legislation that the province could pass, and that the city and the other local municipalities couldn't challenge on a constitutional basis. This was brought home again very recently, just a couple of years ago, and I spoke about it again at the orientation, the City of Toronto versus the Ontario Attorney General. Paragraph 2, municipalities are purely creatures of provincial statute. So at any time, the province can change the rules on you. And if the province sees fit for a municipality to be amalgamated, to be restructured, to be annexed, to be done away with entirely, which is what Justice Bourne said in the East York case, the province has the authority to do that at any time. One of the indicia, one of the criteria of being a creature of provincial statute is that the province, at its whim, at any time can decide with the stroke of a pen, as Justice Bourne's indicated, can do away with a municipality. So it can also restructure a municipality. So to today's topic, restructuring under the Municipal Act. What is a municipal restructuring? Well, there's a definition in Section 172, and there it is. It says it could be any of those 7 different things. Annexation, an amalgamation, a separation, because as you know, we have separated municipalities. In Simcoe County, you have one, City of Barrie, separated from the rest of Simcoe County, including desolation, dissolving a municipality under F there, okay? So what is the purpose? The purpose of the municipal restructuring provisions in sections 172 to 179 are threefold. To provide a process where municipal restructuring of boundaries, geographies, taxes, powers can proceed in a timely and efficient manner. To facilitate any kind of restructuring over a large geographical area, and to facilitate it to a significant nature that may include a level of government. As you know, a provincial facilitators are looking at a number of 2-tier structures. Interestingly enough, not Simcoe County, but they're looking at that to possibly revise the structures here in Ontario with a lot of the 2-tier regional type governments. What mechanisms, what avenues are available? Well, there's 3 types in the Municipal Act. The first one is the municipal restructuring proposal, which I'll talk about in greater depth in section 173. There is the ability of the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing to create and constitute a restructuring commission. And then, of course, there is the ability of what is now the Ontario Land Tribunal, used to be the OMB, used to be the LPAT, that can incorporate or annex or dissolve municipalities pursuant to Section 180 to 183. So what's the difference between a minister's order and a commission's order? Well, the municipal restructuring proposal is set out in section 173. In this instance, local municipalities take the initiative and take charge of preparing a restructuring proposal. There is the requirement that they seek the support of the councils of all of the affected municipalities, but they don't need to have the support. They need to seek the support of the majority of the electors from all affected municipalities, but that's just the majority in total, not the majority in each and every municipality that's possibly affected. And then the minister, if he feels it's appropriate, is authorized to implement the municipal restructuring through an order if he believes, in his opinion, it meets all of the requirements in section 173. A restructuring commission is something quite different. It's and that's covered in sections 174 to 178. Local municipalities, if they don't want to proceed under section 173 with proposing themselves a restructuring order, can seek the option of having the assistance of the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. If the minister receives a request, the minister may appoint and establish a commission to work with the restructuring of the municipalities that are involved. The commission is required to hold at least one public meeting and to consult with all of the affected municipalities. The commission, as opposed to the municipality itself, prepares a restructuring proposal, and the commission is authorized to issue a commission's order. And that doesn't have to go to the minister to have it approved. The commission itself can issue an order to implement the proposal. So those are the two differences. I put up a depiction that shows how it works. This is from Central Elgin, a municipality that I've recently taken on, where there was a proposed municipal restructuring. And here it shows the slight differences between the two methods. I'm not going to go through them, but I'm going to leave it for you. And I'm sorry it looks so jammed up on the slide. So, a municipality would like to consider the amalgamation, the annexation, a border adjustment, some sort of reconfiguration of the geography. What's involved in the municipal restructuring proposal? Well, first of all, they make a request. The municipality that would like to proceed makes a request to the other municipalities as to the restructuring, whether it's an amalgamation or an annexation. They then proceed to draft a restructuring proposal and potentially a boundary adjustment agreement, and I'll speak about that in a moment. The draft of the restructuring proposal is submitted to the minister in the form of a report for the minister's initial review and intake. There has to be at least one public meeting. As you know, you often have to have only one public meeting, but sometimes there's multiple public meetings. Just think of development charge bylaws or your comprehensive zoning bylaw or something like that. And then after that, or even before, there has to be a consultation with all prescribed persons or bodies. Prescribed means the persons or bodies that have been set out in a regulation to indicate which bodies and persons must be consulted. The councils and the electors of each effective municipality are entitled to vote on the restructuring proposal, and the approval requires a support of a double majority. I'll explain that. If council approves the restructuring proposal, then the final proposal is submitted to the minister for implementation in the form of a report. And then the minister has a discretion. The minister can refuse, but the minister can also approve. The minister can also revise. So the minister has a lot of authority to do things. If the minister is of the opinion that the proposal is sufficient and the report meets the requirements of Section 173, as well as the underlying regulations, which have all of the teeth and all of the details, the minister may make the order to implement the restructuring. Okay, so there's a lot of authority here given to the minister. So typically what you will see is a municipality that would like to have a restructuring proposal proceed will often liaise with the minister in order to see if they can curry the favor of the minister to get it. Clearly, that is also the same thing that could happen for a municipality that doesn't want to be part of the restructuring proposal. We'll seek to speak to the minister and try to get the minister on side. So what's contained in a restructuring proposal? There are very detailed prescriptive requirements. The basic outline of what is required is in section 173 sub 1. And I've got it there. I'm not going to talk about it to any great length, but you have to have a description of the proposal in a form that the minister may require, and the minister may require more detail than is typically set out for some other things, may require it to be more general. It's in the minister's discretion as to the form. The minister has to be satisfied that the proposal has the prescribed degree of support from the municipalities and the local bodies. The support was determined in the prescribed manner set out in the regulation, that the municipalities which support the restructuring proposal also meet the requirements, and that the municipalities have been consulting with the public in the required manner as set out in the regulations. A boundary adjustment agreement is not mandated, and you'll see that we pulled one from a municipality here. So municipality doesn't have to enter into a boundary adjustment agreement, but typically any restructuring proposal that I have seen has had one that talks about all sorts of things like the transfer of assets. What about liabilities and continuing liabilities? What about the rights and obligations as between the affected municipalities? So what I've done is I looked at the boundary adjustment agreement between the town of Tecumseh, County of Essex, and the City of Windsor. Interestingly enough, it wasn't dated. I don't know when it was, but I believe it was done shortly after the Savings and Restructuring Act was put in place in 1996, and it came forward in that. It was, the authority was done under sections 25.1 and 25.2, so it shows you it was before the current Municipal Act. And it shows you the main topics, the main subject matters, the effective date and implementation, the lands that were to be annexed by the City of Windsor in this case. What were the representation for the electors? What type of compensation was paid by Windsor to the town of Tecumseh and the County of Essex for the annexation of the land? How would tax collection and assessment go forward? What about phase-in on taxes? Who would provide municipal services and how? Studies, plans, records. How were employees to be transferred and who would be responsible? What about other matters dealing with property? Of course, the big one, liabilities. Who would remain liable and for what time, or should they be transferred over? Which bylaws would go over and official plans would be taken status? A moratorium on any further adjustments for a period of time, that's typical, and a dispute resolution provision. In case any of the provisions were not addressed to the satisfaction of the other parties, there would typically be a dispute resolution provision. I have some very minor experience dealing with boundary adjustment agreements. I helped with one in the city of Stratford, which must have been about 15 years ago. What constitutes a double majority that is required in order for a municipal restructuring proposal to go forward? You need a majority of the local municipalities to agree, with more than half of the electors represented of all of the municipalities. So if one municipality has the majority of the electors in their municipality, you could achieve a double majority very quickly. You may have heard about triple majority in some instances when there is a transfer of assets or a transfer of responsibilities or powers between levels of government. That's different than the double majority that's required here. So the support of the local municipality is to be expressed by bylaw or resolution. Typically, that's the way it's done. And the final bullet is not that important for your instance here. How does it get implemented? As I indicated, the minister has ultimate authority and can implement the restructuring proposal, has statutory authority to do that in accordance with Section 173 sub 4. If the minister decides to proceed, it will give approval to the proposal and the report by publishing it as an order in the Ontario Gazette and filing it with the municipality. Each municipality then is bound by it, must make it available, and the minister's order is not a regulation. The reason why it says that is because regulations have certain requirements under the Regulation Act as well as the Legislation Act. There are several ways to challenge a restructuring proposal. Interestingly enough, there has not been a single case that we've been able to find where there's a restructuring proposal that's been challenged under the new Municipal Act. There were a few that were challenged under the Savings and Restructuring Act back from 1996 to about 2003, but not since then. There is no right to appeal. I just want to be clear. This is not something that a municipality doesn't like says, oh, okay, fine, we're just going to go to the OLT. There is no statutory right to appeal a municipal restructuring order under the Municipal Act. But there are ways of possibly challenging a restructuring proposal, and this is done through the courts. There are three ways that at least we've come up with that there can be a challenge possibly prior to the implementation, and I've set them out on the screen. The first one is the restructuring proposal doesn't meet the criteria that's specified by regulation, by the minister, or in the form that minister wants. The municipalities have not satisfied the proof of support that's required, including the double majority, or the required bylaws, resolutions that demonstrate the municipality support, they may be challenged on the basis of illegality, which is a ground for quashing a bylaw under Section 273, and that includes bad faith. So those are three possible ways of challenging it. Pre-implementation, post-implementation, there has to be a possible review under the Judicial Review Procedures Act that the minister's decision might not have been properly authorized, or that it was somehow illegal for its failure to comply with the prescribed procedures. Or the other way of challenging it, but probably the more susceptible one that probably might not work, would be an application to the courts under the rules of civil procedure, basically saying that the restructuring fails to meet the mandated stated purposes of the restructuring and declaratory relief sought by the party going forward under the rules of civil procedure. So, members of council, Mr. Mayor, I've come to the end of really the presentation that I was going to make. I was going to show you several examples, some of which are commission restructuring, some of which are municipal, and some of which are purely legislative. I will leave it to you. I won't take up your time in case you would like to ask any questions at this time. I'll leave those for you to look at. So I'll stop sharing my screen, Mr. Mayor, if I can figure out how to do so here, and we'll go back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mascaron. I think just to bring clarity for everyone and council, the reason for Mr. Mascaron's presentation is, as we're all aware, last council it was introduced that the town of Orillia is doing a land needs assessment in order to meet their housing requirement and need for more industrial land, and we are one of the townships that they are looking at. So we asked Mr. Mascaron to come to help us understand so that we can take a strategic and best position as a township moving forward. CO Dunn, would you like to add to that?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Absolutely. Mr. Mascaron's open session presentation was effectively to provide Restructuring 101, the specifics of the relationship with the city of Orillia, and any of the strategy and discussion and direction would take place, Mr. Mayor, with council, with Mr. Mascaron, at a subsequent meeting in closed session with respect to how to be able to deal with that. It was the opportunity to set the table with an anticipation sometime perhaps in April or early May that Mr. Mascaron would be back.
Yes. Thank you, CO Dunn. And I think it's like we're not hitting the panic button, but the more informed we all are and educated on this matter, the best prepared we will be moving forward. Does any council members have questions for Mr. Mascaron at this time? Mr. Dunn?
Mr. Mayor, no questions from council. Mr. Mascaron, thank you very much. You've got 7 minutes, sir, before your next meeting. John, thank you very much for dancing through that orientation for council. Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you, John.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mascaron, and have yourself a great evening. I'm sure you got lots on the plate yet to do. So.
Another council meeting, Mr. Mayor, and probably not as fun as this one. How could it be? Thank you very much for having me. I will see you shortly.
It's kind of funny. Mr. Williams had the similar comment earlier. Thank you.
Good night.
Madam Clerk, could we have a motion to receive the presentation from Mr. Mascaron, please?
Moved by Hutchison, seconded by Shell. Be it resolved that the PowerPoint presentation provided by John Mascaron, Airden Beerless LLP, municipal restructuring presentation be received.
All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. And to shift gears, Madam Clerk, we'll go back to the closed session items to that. So I don't know how you want to do this, but I'd say, is it first, would you want to deal with item C or parts of?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I will read the motion for item C and D, I guess. Moved by Shell, seconded by Bard. Be it resolved that the confidential memorandum correspondence dated February 3rd, 2023, from Chris Williams and Andrea Skinner, Airden Beerless LLP, and confidential verbal information presented by Robin Dunn, CAO, Chris Williams, and Andrea Skinner, Airden Beerless LLP, litigation affecting the municipality, solicitor-client privilege, legal update, cannabis, and Zone 1 water be received. That staff and legal counsel proceed with the leave to appeal and the review request of the tribunal decision of January 5th with respect to cannabis.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And do you want to deal with the other item under C now or at the end?
Now, please.
Okay, thank you.
Moved by Clark, seconded by Young. Be it resolved that the confidential memorandum correspondence dated February 3rd, 2023, from Chris Williams and Andrea Skinner, Airden Beerless LLP, and confidential verbal information presented by Robin Dunn, CAO, Chris Williams, and Andrea Skinner, Airden Beerless LLP, litigation affecting the municipality's solicitor-client privilege, legal updates, short-term rentals be received. That staff and legal counsel proceed with the leave to appeal and refrain from participation in negotiations mediations at this time. Re short-term rentals.
All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Okay, and I believe, Madam Clerk, item D, please.
Moved by Hutchison, seconded by Lavoie. Be it resolved that DS 2023-007, Derek Whitlib, Acting Director, Development Services, and Michelle Jacoby, Director, Environmental Services, re-litigation affecting the municipality, 2012 SUB 03, part of Lot 24, Concession 8, OLT case OLT 2022-004811 be received and adopted.
All in
That-
favor? Sorry, my
No,
apologies.
okay, thank you. That the draft plan conditions for application 2012 sub 03 Baxter's Place be imposed, which allow for the offline underground water storage for firefighting water supply. 3, that the township provide representation, planning staff, environmental services staff, and township solicitor at an Ontario Land Tribunal, OLT hearing if required. That the draft plan proposal for application 2012 sub 03 Baxter's Place be extended for a period of 1 year, and that the applicant be advised of the council's decision under the Acting Director, Development Services signature.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. My apologies for the interruption.
That's okay.
All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. And then item E, please, Madam Clerk.
Moved by Young, seconded by Shell. Be it resolved that the confidential information presented by Robin Dunn, CAO, and Tamara Obi, Director of Human Resources, Labor Relations, Employee Negotiations, Collective Bargaining, be received. That staff proceed as outlined.
All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. That concludes the closed session items. Now, item 5, minutes of council meeting. Madam Clerk, may we have a motion for the minutes of the previous council meeting, please?
Moved by Lavoie, seconded by Clark. Be it resolved that the draft minutes of the council meeting held on Wednesday, January 25th, 2023, be received and adopted as printed and circulated.
All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. We have no, item 6, recognitions of achievements. We have none. In public meetings, we have none tonight. Item 9, identification from the public of the agenda of interest. Is there any member of the public present or registered to speak?
No, there is not.
Thank you. Open forum, Madam Clerk, do you have anyone registered to speak in open forum?
No, we do not, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Reports of municipal officers for action, there are none. Reports of municipal officers for information only, there's none. Reports of members of council. Are there any updates from members of council as township representatives with our partners or agencies? Councillor, Deputy Mayor, my apologies, Lavoie.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the rest of council, just a minor update on the Audit and Finance Committee proceedings with regard to the county of Simcoe. We did have a preliminary meeting. There will be 3 over the course of the year with regard to the Simcoe County budget, which is approximately $700 million. Some of the key factors that they see with regard to finance and auditing, in particular the provision of insurance underwriting, faces 5 areas of key challenge. One is climate change, joint and several liability, which is something called the 1% rule, where regardless of who is at fault, the party named with the deepest pockets pays. And this has led to a number of extremely high civil claims against townships, municipalities, and cities in the several tens of millions of dollars. There have been class action suits of similar nature, And then there's a changing legal landscape on future care costs, which is where someone is injured as a result of something that happens on municipal property. And then the future care for that party is considered in the legal claim. The other thing that's interesting is many of the underwriters, the insurance companies have ceased to provide cybersecurity protection for municipalities because of a number of incidents involving breaches of municipalities where their data is held for ransom. And this has led to large settlements that insurance companies are no longer willing to underwrite. That's just generally the tone of it. There's a lot of work to do with regard to what's happening at the county level, simply because the landscape for both them and ourselves is changing with the evolving legislation from the province. So thank you very much for the opportunity, Mr. Mayor, and that closes my comments.
Thank you very much for that detailed update. Appreciate that. Any other members of council? Councillor Shao.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Greenlaw, to you and the rest of the council. I attended the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Annual AGM, and they voted in their new members. The board of directors have been appointed, and they put on an excellent presentation. I believe it was called Maple Leaves Forever. It's not-for-profit group that's offering to replant maple trees throughout Simcoe County. So if we see a need for some maple trees to be planted anywhere in our neighborhood, we just need to approach them. And they have a facility there that is really great. If nobody here has had the opportunity to go to it and take your kids to it or your grandchildren, I'd recommend it highly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shell. It's a great opportunity that we should all take advantage of.
Yes.
Okay, any other announcements? No, so now we'll go to announcements. That was reports. So announcements, Councillor Hutchinson.
I do. I wanted to just speak to some really outstanding athletic results from some residents in Ward 1. We've got some world-class athletes in our township, and very happy to home some in Ward 1. So firstly, sisters Isabella and Ava Holmgren, they won first and second place at the 2023 UCI Cyclocross World Championships recently. They're residents in our Sugarbush area, and Horseshoe in Horseshoe is home to Charlie Beatty, and he is a first place winner at the North American Freestyle competition recently in Colorado. Charlie trains at both Mount St. Louis and Horseshoe, so I think this is a real testament to our terrific programs that we have here in Oro-Medonte, and these events that our families can take part in. So that's amazing. And is it appropriate for me to recognize some work that the staff has done recently?
Sure.
Okay. I did want to give a shout out to Jenny Leggett and her communications team, because she's been working very hard in improving communications out to our residents. She's recently reintroduced their Council Highlights newsletter. She is proactively reaching out to our local Facebook community group admins to gain agreement to post upcoming council meeting agendas. She's proactively pushing out community event updates on social media, and I'm seeing a lot of very positive feedback from the community with regard to that. And I would encourage our residents to subscribe to both our council agendas and highlights news and the Council Highlights newsletter, and also follow the township on our social media platforms on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. It'll be interesting to see what kind of uptake numbers we're going to get over the next little bit, but it's a great way to stay informed, and Jenny and her team are doing a terrific job. So I just wanted to give them a shout out.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hutchinson. I think we all echo our congratulations to the amazing youth that are putting us, Oro-Medonte, on the map around the world. That is outstanding, to put it mildly. And also to echo Councillor Hutchinson's comments, Jenny, Sam, and the team, you guys have done a great job, and it's putting us in a great position that we're reaching out to engage the community. So thank you very much for that. Now we're on to the consent agenda. Is there any item that a member of the council would like to have pulled for discussion or a separate vote? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, can we have the agenda motion, please?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Lavoie. Be it resolved that the staff recommendations with respect to the items listed under consent agenda correspondence be adopted as printed.
All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Item 16, communication petitions. Madam Clerk, may we please have a motion for item 16A under communication and petitions, please?
Moved by Bard, seconded by Hutchison. Be it resolved that the correspondence dated January 23rd, 2023, from Ryan Post, Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, NVCA, and Bill Thompson, Lake Simcoe Regional Conservation Authority, LSRCA, amendments to South Georgian Bay Lake Simcoe Source Protection Plan, notification of consultation pursuant to Section 34 sub 2 and 34 sub 3 of the Clean Water Act 2006 and Ontario Regulation 287/07 request for council resolution be received. That council endorse the proposed amendments to the Oro-Medonte chapters of the Nottawasaga Valley Assessment Report, as well as the South Georgian Bay Lake Simcoe Source Protection Plan, outlined in the amendments to South Georgian Bay Lake Simcoe Source Protection Plan, notification of consultation pursuant to Section 32 sub 2 and 34 sub 2 and 34 sub 3 of the Clean Water Act 2006 and Ontario Regulation 287/07 per the correspondence dated January 23, 2023. That the NVCA be advised of Council's decision under the Director of Environmental Services signature. That was a lot.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That was a long one. Any comments or questions from members of council? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Councillor Clark has provided a notice of motion which is noted on the agenda to be considered at the next regular council meeting on February 22nd. Council will have an opportunity to provide comments at the meeting on the February 22nd. There is no motion on this item. It's just notice of a motion coming forward. Okay. Number 18, may we have a motion for our bylaws, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Shell, seconded by Young. Be it resolved that 2023-009 and 2023-010 be read a first, second, and third time. Passed, be engrossed by the clerk, signed and sealed by the mayor.
Are there any comments or questions from members of council? Councillor Young?
Yeah, just a couple questions. Exactly what is this new officer going to be doing? And what does this bring the strength up to now in by law enforcement?
Okay. CO Dunn, would you like to respond to that?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Young, perhaps to all members of council. The schedule that is attached to this bylaw accomplishes two things. One, we are addressing municipal law enforcement officers as well as provincial offense officers. I'll let Mr. Shelswell speak in just a moment if he's still with us, or Mr. Whitlib. And council, the staff members that are listed are building inspectors, are municipal law enforcement officers, and fulfill the duties of both municipal law enforcement and enforcing our bylaws and provincial regulations. Mr. Mayor, could I just ask Mr. Shelswell for clarity and Mr. Whitlib. There's no one from Building Services Group, from your Building Services Group, but perhaps Mr. Shelswell and Mr. Whitlib, Mr. Mayor, to provide additional clarity to the very important question from Councillor Young.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Mr. Shelswell, would you like to continue on, please?
Through Mayor Greenlaw to Councillor Young, yes. So we have in the municipal law, I'll answer your question there now. In municipal law, we have 4 full-time staff through doing the regulatory bylaws. And as Mr. Dunn has said, building staff and fire staff all have to be appointed under the bylaw as provincial offenses officers so that they can enforce the Building Code Act as well as Fire Prevention and Protection Act. So yes, we have to, through the Municipal Act, appoint them as officers so that they can do those specific duties. So that is why you see in excess of 20 individuals on that list. That bylaw you'll see come up annually as staff change, come and go. We will have to update the list and then ensure that it remains accurate. So you may see one come forward before the year is done again.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Shelswell, thank you for clarity. But Curtis, there are staff within operations that, under the authority of this bylaw, have the ability to undertake tickets for parking for winter operations and other matters as well.
That is correct, Mr. Dunn. So yeah, there's the Schedule B lists operations individuals from both yards in the event that we need assistance ticketing vehicles, for the most part through the winter months for winter road maintenance. But typically my staff and myself will be out dealing with those issues as needed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shelswell. Mr. Whitlib, was there anything else you wanted to add to the comments of CAO Dunn and Mr. Shelswell?
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. No, Mr. Dunn and Mr. Shelswell have certainly and succinctly identified what the bylaw addresses.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Clark, you had a question?
Yeah, my question was very much in line with Mr. Young's, just so we have an understanding from the public of what the purpose of this bylaw is and why we have these individuals on it. So thank you very much to everyone who addressed that.
Thank you. Any other further questions? Seeing none, could I have the motion, Madam Clerk? Or you've read the motion, I believe, have you not?
Yes.
And then I can just call the vote.
Yes,
Okay.
I have read the motion.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Closed session we dealt with prior at 3 o'clock, so there's nothing outstanding. Confirmation bylaw, may we have the motion for the confirmation bylaw, Madam Clerk?
If I may have just a moment, please.
If Robin is being a distraction, we can have him move.
He is, Your Worship. It's always good to check, Mr. Mayor. Moved by Young, seconded by Bard, be it resolved that bylaw 2023-011, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on Wednesday, February 8, 2023, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, be engrossed by the clerk, signed and sealed by the mayor.
All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. You may have a motion to adjourn, Madam Clerk.
Moved by Hutchison, second by Shell, be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 6:26 p.m.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. So we'll call the motion. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried, and we'll see everyone on the 22nd. Have a great evening, and thank you for attending.